Hello everybody, welcome to Wednesday, and I've got a fresh new backdrop behind me in the form of our Lizzie, my eldest daughter's bedroom. I've been thrown out of the office by Eddie, who's got a Zoom meeting. Abe is in the kitchen, so I can't get in there. Miriam's in the front room, and Lizzie's the only one out, so I'm in her space. But I don't think she's really into these videos, so she'll not know, will she? Today I want us to think more about the power of the Holy Spirit. We're in a season which is called Whitsuntide, and that season is just a week. It starts on the day of Pentecost, or Whitsunday, which we've just celebrated together, and it ends on Trinity Sunday, which is always the week after Pentecost. And it's a bit like Trinity Sunday is stuck on the end of Whitsuntide to remind us about the Holy Spirit, which in many ways feels like a poor relative to Jesus and God. And yet these three parts of the Godhead are all equal, all absolutely equal. So Pentecost is really important in the life of the church. No one would disagree with that. But I think over the years we've minimised it. I'm not the only one who looks back with rose-tinted spectacles to those Whitsuntide parades, marching in uniform, whether it's a girls' brigade uniform, boys' brigade, scouts, whatever it is, marching in uniform, often a band, and let's not forget the church banners, and everybody walking through the streets. Maybe you got a fresh new outfit to wear, and again it was something that the children looked forward to. But for me there seems to be this real disconnect between Pentecost and Whitsunday. It's like I did all that kind of stuff, the community stuff, but what it was really about, well, it just didn't rest up here. I don't know whether it's because I weren't listening or, well, I've no idea. And I don't think I'm the only one. I'm not the only one who looks back and sees Whitsuntide as Whitsuntide. Absolutely nothing to do with the coming of the Holy Spirit. It's far more to do with a march through the streets and a new outfit. So we've minimised the power of the celebration of Pentecost. And Trinity Sunday, to me, it kind of serves as a reminder that the Holy Spirit is just so important, not just one day, 1 week, one season, but every single day of our lives. So just a bit of history first. The whole Whitsun and Whitsuntide, it's a very, very old word. And it was a medieval festival which commemorated or allowed the serfs, the people who worked on the land, to have that time off. It links to a pagan tradition as well called Beltane, but it has been adopted. It was adopted by the church, and certainly in England and Ireland we make that link, that time of Pentecost being at this time of the year. So it's got some very, very old history. We're going back to medieval times, but we're also going back to the pagan roots as well. You might remember as well that Whit Monday, which was always the Monday after Whitsuntide, was a bank holiday. Right up until 1971 it was. And then from 1972 it was replaced with a spring bank holiday, which was the last Monday in May. So there's lots and lots of different forms of celebrating Whitsuntide, but do they really help us celebrate what happened in Acts 2? That's for you, I guess, to think about how you experienced it growing up, maybe how you experience it today. Now, it is a dying tradition. There are still some places, I believe, in the northwest of England where you will still see Whitsuntide parades, but we don't see many round here, do we? Now, in some church traditions, let's think more about the Holy Spirit. In some church traditions, the idea of the Holy Spirit being in worship is terrifying. For other church traditions, the welcoming of the Holy Spirit and the expectation to see the Spirit acting and manifesting itself in people worshipping is commonplace. Some traditions much more reserved, and the Spirit may well be sensed, but it's certainly not something that's declared in public. Maybe it's something that's just private. Maybe it's something that becomes more of a secret, really. So some traditions just emphasise the Holy Spirit and the works of the Spirit. Some have turned the whole idea of God and the Trinity into just an academic exercise. They know all the books, but maybe it's more than an academic exercise. Others will go to worship desperately wanting a stronger, a higher, a bigger, a better experience of the Holy Spirit. And that can leave people really disappointed. I've even been in a worship service many years ago where the preacher was pleading for the Holy Spirit to come and show himself. And, well, it kind of fell flat. And afterwards, when nobody'd responded by going forward, the preacher was just devastated. The Holy Spirit had not shown up. Expectations ruined, a disaster of a night. But was it? I don't think so. We cannot dictate to the Holy Spirit how the Holy Spirit wants to work in and through people. We can't dictate the terms of the Holy Spirit's presence in our lives. But what we do need to remember is that Father, Son, and Spirit are equal in this Godhead. Theology, God talk, which is kind of all encompassing. Christology, emphasis on the Christ, emphasis on Jesus. But have you ever come across pneumatology? And that's the academic name for the study of the Holy Spirit. And this idea of pneuma, breath, is where we get the word pneumonia from. But pneumatology is the study of the expression of the Holy Spirit. This kind of idea of breath and breeze, really important to us. So we might find ourselves in churches where we've just kind of minimised the Spirit of God. We might have told stories about Jesus and we've had lots and lots of moral teachings, but maybe we've been a little bit too academic. And I don't want to decry academia at all. We should all be keeping our knowledge up. But there is something, isn't there, about the personal experience. And our faith is more than telling just nice stories that make us feel better. It's about us experiencing the Spirit of God. And yet many of us maybe wouldn't testify to quite having that Acts 2 experience. So I want you to think about your experience of the Holy Spirit. And I just want to share a couple of things with you. The first thing I kind of want to say is, well, I want to talk about my baptism. I was only a few weeks old. Can I remember it? Of course I can't. Did I experience the Holy Spirit? No idea. Might have, can't remember. Did the people around me experience the Holy Spirit? No idea. However, the same Spirit that hovered over the waters of creation was the same Spirit that hovered over the waters of my baptism and the waters of your baptism. I've got 3 daughters, as many of you know, 19, 17 and 9, going on 29. When Miriam got baptised, did I experience the Holy Spirit? Not really. Did Miriam? No idea. Why didn't I experience the Holy Spirit? You know, I was a Methodist minister, a serving Methodist minister. Well, I'll tell you why. It's not because the Holy Spirit was not there. It's because Miriam was crying, it was snowing really heavily, we'd booked a room, we'd got caterers, and people were cancelling all over the place. My head was elsewhere. Just because I didn't experience the Holy Spirit in the way I thought I would on that morning does not mean the Holy Spirit was not there ministering in and through that sacrament, through the grace of that Spirit. So that's just one experience, isn't it? And I'm quite certain that our heads can sometimes be in just a different space. But that doesn't mean the Spirit of God is not working in and through us. That doesn't mean the Spirit of God is not just holding everything together when we can't. And I believe that for each and every one of us, the Holy Spirit is so present. Now, it might be that our heads are just somewhere else. We might be clouded with physical stuff as well as emotional stuff, never mind spiritual stuff. But God isn't ignoring any of that. Just because we don't recognise or experience does not mean the Spirit hasn't bothered to turn up. So I'm reminded this week in Whitsuntide of the triune God, Father, Son and Holy Spirit. And I'm going to make a special effort to try and remember that all three of those parts of the Godhead, the persons of God, are all equal and are present. You might experience the Holy Spirit in strange ways. John Wesley said his heart was strangely warmed, and I love that word, strangely. You might get strange goosebumps in a worship service, or maybe just in prayer. Maybe you're at home, maybe you're in the garden, and something just gives you goosebumps. Holy Spirit. It might be that you're praying, or maybe somebody says something, or you hear something in a sermon, and all of a sudden the hairs on the back of your neck just stand up. The Holy Spirit. It might be that there's a sudden change in temperature, or all of a sudden you can sense a breeze, but there's no windows open, there's no drafty doors, there's nothing that accounts for the breeze, and yet you feel it, you experience it, and maybe the people around you do as well. The Holy Spirit is with us when we don't realise it, and that is absolutely fine. When we don't sense the Spirit, it's not the Holy Spirit's fault. It's not simply that the Holy Spirit just couldn't be bothered. So I wonder this week whether you could think back to your history, think back to your memories of Whitsuntide. Is there a link between Whitsuntide and the Holy Spirit, or was it more to do with the parade, the banner, and maybe the nice outfit? How do you remember it? And how do you want to keep on remembering this season? For me, I want to remember it with the word strangely. And my prayer is that maybe this week we will have strange goosebumps and strange breezes, and maybe the hair on the back of our heads will just stand on end, and we'll be reminded that God is God, Father, Son and Spirit, and we need some more strange experiences. So thanks everybody, that was today's kind of slot. Look forward to seeing you all soon, so take care and God bless.